sometimes bigger is just better. Maybe not in the way that some of you out there might be thinking. I'm actually talking about projector screens. And here today, we are talking about the newest DIY projector screen build that I have made and put up here in my home theater. And that is this projector screen right here. This is a 128.5-inch 16:9 projector screen. And it is made out of a Temu projector screen material. And here in this video today, we're going to talk about some positives, some negatives about this screen, and whether or not this screen here is the actual best bang for your buck for a home theater screen build if you want to put one in your home theater. So with all that out of the way, let's get into the video. Now, in terms of items in my home theater that I've cycled around and moved around and kind of replaced and experimented with here, the number one item on that list would be speakers. The number two item on that list would be projectors. And then honestly, the number three item on that list would be the projector screen. And even in the time that I have had this channel here on YouTube, which I started this in October of 2023, and right now this is June of 2025, I've actually had 5 different projector screens when you count this newest one that I have here on the wall. I started off with a 120-inch fixed frame projector screen. I owned that well before I ever even started this channel. And that was purchased off of Amazon. It was a warehouse deal, and it had some issues. The PVC was not acoustically transparent. The frame was misaligned, and you couldn't really get it fully squared on the wall, so there was always some keystoning issues. But I got that for a pretty cheap deal years and years ago, probably like 7-8 years ago at this point, off of Amazon. And I had that here in my home theater before I ever had this channel. But then after a little bit, I built a 110-inch DIY projector screen frame with some spandex material that I got from Walmart, just in their fabric section. And so I built that 110-inch DIY projector screen frame out of that material here on the channel. And then a couple months, 6 months or so after that, I got contacted by Elite Screens, and they sent me some material to make a Cinegray 5D material screen. And I built that with a very thin frame so that I could sit it over the 110-inch frame and just kind of like sit it on there like a frame on top of a frame kind of thing. And I had that for a while here. Then when I bought my new high-end DLP projectors, well, new to me, I suppose, back at the beginning of this year, I went and undertook some semi-renovations, I guess you could say, here in the home theater. And one of the things I wanted to do was pull the screen out away from the wall so I could put my LCRs behind the screen. And so in doing that, I had to take down the Elite Screens material. And it was not because the material provided a poor image or anything like that. It's that the Cinegray 5D material is not acoustically transparent. And so I used some leftover spandex material, and it kept the 115-inch size. I just built this little speaker box or projector box to pull the screen out enough so my speakers could sit behind it. So those were the 4 screens I had up until I built this one, which is here behind me and what we're talking about here today. So this projector screen here is a 128.5-inch 16:9 projector screen. And I built it out of some basic 1x4 pieces of lumber. So just your run-of-the-mill pine lumber you can get from any of your major hardware stores. And used not only a black backing piece of spandex from my Joanne fabrics collection that I have just stored up here since they've been going out of business the last few months. The main material that's up here is actually the Temu projector screen material that I was supposed to get originally like a month or 2 ago, where they sent me the wrong size. They sent me a 100-inch screen instead of a 150-inch screen. Really quickly, I want to talk about why I picked a 128.5-inch screen size, because a lot of people may think that's kind of an odd number to pick for, a theater screen. And the main reason for it, because there's a couple I'm going to talk about briefly, the main reason for it though is math, just simple math. And that's because since this is a 16:9 projector screen, doing 128.5 inches makes even numbers that are easy to cut. So the length of the pieces of wood are 112 inches long, so very simple for the cuts. And when you factor in, since they're 1x4s, the dimensional width of the actual pieces, the support pieces, vertical pieces, come out to, I believe it's 56 inches. So it's very simple math and easy cuts to make, to kind of put on here and even it out. So I have my regular screen frame, but I also have two supports that are like a third of the way in. They kind of fall in between my three LCR speakers. Now, the other reason I picked 128.5 inches outside of the math is this is really about the biggest size screen I can logistically fit here in my home theater before you start getting into where the image is getting shadows and people's heads and stuff getting kind of cropped in to the image and blocking out the actual image. The B-roll footage you're going to see is going to be a mix of this screen build and then maybe some B-roll thrown in of previous projector screen builds that I've recorded just for ease of use. But I basically did the same thing with all of these screens. The only difference, of course, is the size and the actual sizes of the lumber that I used. Otherwise, everything else, the process is almost entirely the same. Now, what I did is I built the frame out of standard 1x4 pieces of lumber. This is just standard pine that you can get from any home improvement store. I ended up getting mine from RP Lumber in Litchfield, Illinois, and I definitely want to shout the staff out there, especially Gavin, who was the guy who actually let me go with him to find the best pieces of lumber, and he actually cut them to the dimensions and stuff for me like I needed. So definitely a big shout out to the RP Lumber staff in Litchfield, Illinois, where I purchased this. But you can get these pieces of lumber and really all these supplies that I use for this really at any home improvement store, whatever is closest near you, wherever you live. But I used 1x4 pieces of standard pine for the frame. I also used 2 pieces as supports in the middle, as I was saying just a minute ago, kind of a third of the way in on each side. And then I put them together with some basic T-brackets for the center supports, and then I did L brackets for the corner supports. I did not only exterior L brackets to sit on the back of the actual projector frame, but then I also did interior L brackets that sit on the actual interior of the wood together. And that, I think, really helps create a more rigid, sturdy frame for the actual projector screen. And I did that on all 4 of the main corners, and then I did T brackets and some of those interior L brackets on the supports in the middle. And so this projector screen is very rigid and very sturdy the way it's set up. So I don't really have to worry about it bowing and flexing a lot. It really is pretty sturdy. Now, one other thing before we get into projector screen materials and more about the actual image quality and stuff, the last thing about construction. Not only did I put everything together like I just said, but I also painted the front-facing part of the frame black. And I did that off of a tip from Kevison Films, another YouTuber here on the platform that I consider kind of like a friend of mine, you know, a loose friend of mine. We've interacted here on YouTube over the time we've both had our channels. And he built a projector screen frame either beginning of this year or end of last year. I forget when he posted the video, but he talked about putting black paint, matte black paint on your frame that's facing outwards so that you don't get a lot of see-through and see like the posts in the frame kind of bleeding through the projector screen material. So I decided just to go ahead and do that because I still had extra black paint for when I painted my room here. So I just want to say thanks to Kevison Films and his video for that tip, because I do think it helps. But there is another thing that helps with that I'm going to talk about next, and that is the actual material that I'm using here on the projector screen. Like I said, this is a projector screen material off of Temu, and that is the material that I'm using here. Now, I do have a black backing behind it that is just some black spandex material from Joann Fabric. And so I did put a black backing behind this material here. This is actually like a polyester blend material. So it is a little bit thicker and a little less light resistant than maybe a spandex would be with just a straight white piece of spandex. But this is also not a very dense piece of material. So the light will shine through it if you don't have a backing on there and you have a projector that really can put out a lot of lumens on it. So I decided to play it safe and just put a black backing behind it of that black spandex. And that really helps not only increase the perceived contrast ratio, but it also helps with the colors and helps keep all my speakers and stuff that's behind the screen from showing through. One other tip that I did pick up from Kevison Films outside of the painting the frame black, I actually picked up how I affixed the materials to the projector screen frame. So in the past, I had always stapled them down with a staple gun. And while that does work, it is nice, it is sturdy, there is a chance that the staples will kind of misfire, I guess, or misconnect with the wood, and they'll get like bent out of shape. It also is really hard unless you have a really nice staple remover to pull them out if you need to realign the material. So instead, what I ended up doing was I just used some basic thumbtacks. That's another tip, like I said, from Kevison Films. I took basic thumbtacks and just tacked them in around the rear of the screen where I was pulling and tacking everything down. And that not only is secure and holds the material really well, but also it's easy to pop those up. You can just take like the back of a claw hammer and just pop them out, or even a screwdriver and just pop them up and remove them if you need to like readjust the material and pull it and stretch it. So another tip, from Kevis and Films that I really enjoyed that I used on this. And now speaking of putting the material on the frame, I did it in 2 layers with the 2 pieces of material. So in the past, I had always just put the black and the white kind of together and pulled them simultaneously and tacked them down with like staples. This time, since I was using the thumbtacks, I did it in 2 layers. So I took the black material, pulled all that first, tacked it down with the tacks, made sure that was taut and secure and smooth, and then I took the material from Temu and put it over it on there and tacked it down with its own tacks. And the main reason I did that was not only to try and get both sections independently like smooth without any creases or wrinkles or stuff in it, but also this material, while it's not bad, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, it's not bad, but it's not the best material you can get for something like this. And so there are some imperfections in the image. And so if I decide down the road that I want to replace this, I can just untack the actual white Temu screen material, pull that off. The black material will already be on the frame and it be intact on there. And then I can just put my new material on top of it. All I have to mess with is just the front piece of material, the white piece of spandex or whatever I get. So that's the main reason I did it like that. And again, like I said, I have to thank Kevison Films. Like I said a second ago, this material is not perfect, and it is definitely not the best material you're going to get. And that mainly is because of the shipping method that Temu ships these projector screens in. When they ship those items, they fold them really, really tight and almost like vacuum seal them so that they can fit in just a small little bubble mailer to go in the mail. And so because of that, it has lines and wrinkles in the image that you really can't get rid of. You'll see it in the B-roll I put up here, but you might also be able to see it with the way the lighting is set up here. You can kind of see some creases here. You can see some vertical creases. You can see some, kind of lines at the bottom right here that's on there. You may also be able to see some discoloration. There's a little discoloration like down here in this spot. There's a little bit of discoloration kind of up in some random spots up here. It's just kind of the nature of what you're getting with this type of material. So there is some imperfections in the image. Now, in actual viewing conditions, watching content, the image quality is pretty good with this material. Those imperfections will show up, but they usually only show up if you have a static, bright scene, whether it's, pure white or just an extremely bright scene, like a big outdoor scene. A good thing to kind of use here that you'll probably see is Big Buck Bunny, because it's very bright, very vibrant, a very high luminance kind of scene. If you're looking at it like that kind of content for a long period of time and you're really trying to focus in to find it, you will see these little imperfections in the image. When it's dark scene content or kind of mixed luminance content, you won't even notice it. And I feel like for me especially, since I know these imperfections are there, I tend to like focus in on them, you know, as I think a lot of home theater enthusiasts will, just because we tend to fixate on that sort of stuff. And so I can pick them out. But like my wife or other people who have come in here to actually watch content on this new screen since I've had it up, they don't really notice it at all. They've never said anything about it. And really, unless I pointed it out to them, they probably wouldn't care. But just be aware, if you're going to buy something like this, these imperfections are probably going to be there. And I really tried to stretch them out as best I could, not only with the tacking down of the material and pulling it taut to try and tension those creases and stuff out, but also my wife Mallory went in advance before I did this. She actually like steamed and kind of like cleaned the material as best she could, and actually like hung it and like stretched it and did a bunch of stuff to like try and get the creases out as best she could. So she definitely helped as much as she could do with it, but I think it's just inherent in this material because of the way they fold it. You're never going to get a perfectly flat, creaseless screen from Temu. You're much better off, if you're really going to be that serious and that like upset about creases in the image, just go with a more dedicated fabric manufacturer, whether that's a home theater screen company or just a regular fabric company, because you're most likely 99% probably going to get a more pristine piece of material than what you're going to get here. The big thing for me with this screen isn't so much the material quality in terms of its actual construction quality with the creases and that sort of stuff. It really comes down to the size factor. And previously, I had always tried to be a proponent of getting a screen that would kind of fill your field of vision without making you have to turn your head and look around the screen, you know, to see stuff, that you would get the entire image just in your field of vision. There's also something to be said about having the largest screen area possible in your space. And for my home theater, this screen at this size, for my seating distance, I'm about, I don't know, 9 feet away for the main position, and I think about 11 or 12 feet for the secondary position, the couch, you know, secondary couch in my home theater. But for the main seating position, it's like 9 feet away. This screen here feels borderline like an IMAX screen. When it's the full 16:9 filled image on the screen, it really does feel extremely immersive, and more immersive than any sort of viewing experience I've had here in my home theater. So while it is beneficial to some people to have that entire image smaller and just in your field of vision so you don't have to strain looking around, there is just something to be said about having a larger than life, you know, life-sized image in your home theater that takes up nearly the entire wall that you're viewing it on. Like I said, for me, this is as close to like an IMAX style home theater screen that I can kind of realistically fit in my home theater here today, you know, in my current setup. There's really no way to go any bigger than this. For that reason alone, I think I'm definitely sticking with the go as big as possible kind of philosophy moving forward, you know, in home theaters, whether it's here or somewhere else down the road. But yeah, this is definitely worth its weight for the size alone and the immersion alone that you get with a screen like this. So overall, to wrap this video up here, I want to talk about value. You know, is this the best value you can get for your home theater screen? Probably not. I mean, to be just brutally honest, probably not. Now, for me, since all I really had to purchase was the new wood, and I got the projector screen material for like less than $15 because of the partial refund I got for it, that's not really that bad. And since the black piece of spandex behind it I had already owned, I purchased it from Joann, you know, on a clearance discount with them going out of business. Yeah, it's really not that bad. You know, it's a decent quality. But to get the best quality available, I would say go DIY, but go with a more dedicated home theater screen manufacturing company like Elite Screens or Seymour or one of those companies, or buy just regular spandex from a dedicated fabric company. Spandex World, Joann Fabric, Walmart, even if you have a Walmart near you that sells fabric and has some there, I would just do that. But for what it is, and at least for right now, for my home theater, I'm going to use it as it is. You know, this is perfectly fine. And I think for right now, the novelty of having the larger than life kind of image quality here in my home theater, really maxed out to the constraints of my room, is going to outweigh some of these other imperfections for right now. Maybe down the road, you know, 6 months, a year from now, maybe I'll decide to take this off and just put some regular spandex back up here. But for right now, it's the big image, the IMAX style image, you know, or IMAX, you know, that I could get here in my home theater style image that's really overtaking some of the imperfections. But overall, this is, I think, a decent purchase for me. But if you really wanted to get the best image quality, go with a dedicated fabric company or a dedicated home theater kind of company to buy your fabric. I think you're going to be a lot happier at the end of the day than what you're going to get with this. And so with that, I'm going to say thank you, and I'm going to wrap this video up here today. I really do appreciate all the support that everyone has given me on the channel. I really do appreciate it. Check out the playlist that will be attached here for more projector screen content. At the end of this video, all my projector screen videos will be kind of linked in that playlist there. You can also check out my most recent upload prior to this, which would be about our new puppy, Obi. He's kind of the reason my content's going to be a little more sporadic going forward here in the next, week or two or whatever, just as he becomes more acclimated to the house here. And in fact, as a side note, for anyone who is interested in Obi, here today as I'm filming this, this is his first time in the home theater, you know, so it's kind of a little heartwarming thing for me, like when I had Winston here, to have Obi down here, you know, as I'm filming content. With that, I want to say thank you again to everyone. Be on the lookout. More content will be coming soon, maybe just a little more sporadic as Obi gets acclimated to the house. And with that, if you do enjoy this content, definitely consider leaving a like, leaving a subscribe, leaving a comment down below about what type of projector screen you guys use in your home theater, whether it's DIY, whether it's a actual fixed frame screen, you know, whatever the case may be, you know, how big of a screen you have. You can definitely leave comments down below. I love hearing from you guys. And with that, we will wrap this video up, and I will see you the next time in the next video right here on Secondhand Home Theater. Thank you.